good evening, whichever time zone you have joined us from. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we head on to today's webinar, I have this very important disclaimer. And that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. Once again, welcome everybody to today's episode on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. We are streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and I'm your host, Nipasa Pradhan. And today we have an a very exciting topic, and it's going to be a very insightful webinar today on this topic: ready to invest in your future, EB5 Visa Guide and 2024 updates. So to help us get deeper into this topic, joining me today is a highly respected professional, director of corporate and litigation at Singh Law LLC. So please help me welcome our distinguished guest. Thank you so much for joining us today, Seema. Thank you so much. So good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Nipasa. It's always a pleasure to be on this show. I know I've not been here for a bit now due to my trial schedules, but always a pleasure. And thank you for inviting me to this forum.
It's always an honor and a pleasure to have you here, and I'm looking forward to this very insightful webinar today. So, what can folks out there expect from this webinar that we are going to talk about EB5 visa today?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? I'm sorry. It's like
It's all
cutting off.
right. I was just
Sorry.
going to ask you, what can folks out there who have joined us in different platforms, what can they expect from this webinar from us today?
Well, I'm going to provide you a guide to the EB5 employment-based, process to obtain a green card and then a pathway to citizenship. And this EB5 program was started way back in 1990 initially, and then it has been continuing to be extended. And at this time in 2022, it has been extended to 2027. And what is this EB5 program? The US wanted to promote and stimulate the US economy through job creation and capital investment from foreigners. So they came up with this EB5 program where foreign investments were welcome to boost the job market in the US and the economy. And in exchange, they gave these investors a green card and then obviously a pathway to citizenship. So that's the basic crux of the EB5 program. There are different, and we'll get into this later in the program as to what the process is, what are the requirements of this program, what is the capital investment required, and how that process is navigated. So I'm going to, just go along with you, Nipasa.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. And absolutely, I just want to quickly say something to all our viewers who have joined us across different platforms that I'm very glad you're here, but also that you can also participate in this webinar with us. All you have to do is comment, whatever questions you have under the topic. It's going to be great to have your questions because Seema is going to be here and she'll be happy to take up your questions to answer. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get started then, Seema. I have questions lined up for you. And without further ado, I have this first one. And if you could walk us through the definitive guide to EB5 visa for investors and explain the key steps in the process from the initial investment to obtaining permanent residency.
Sure. So basically, the requirements for EB5 for an investor in the US is to invest in a commercial enterprise and to create jobs, and full-time jobs must be created. So there are two parts to this EB5. One is a standalone investor who can create their own project and invest. They have to create 10 full-time jobs, and that's the only way they can get their project approved. The second part is regional centers. In 1992, the Congress created regional center program, which set aside the EB5 participants who were investors in a commercial enterprise. Now, what is a commercial enterprise? It's extremely important to know the definition of that, because I get calls all the time saying, I have a company already and I can put some capital in it, and can I, be qualified as an EB investor and bring my family or somebody over? Well, no, you cannot, because it has to either be, so there are two parts to it. After November 29, 1990, that's how they, you know, demarket, and then on or before November 29, 1990. So on or before November 29, 1990, you have to have purchased an existing business. It has to be restructured and reorganized in a way that it becomes a commercial enterprise, a new commercial enterprise, or you expand it through investment with at least 40% increase in the net worth and the number of employees. That's the only way. Prior to November 29, 1990, you can, earmark or, create a existing business as a new commercial enterprise. And then after November 29, 1990, any company that's created, it has to be a brand new commercial enterprise. It can be a sole proprietorship, it can be a business trust, a corporation, a venture, a new venture, but there cannot be any commercial, non-commercial activity will not qualify as an EB5. So we have people saying, "Oh, I can buy, a residential property for myself.
Mhm.
Would that qualify? It's over $1 million." No, it has to be a commercial entity, because the basic core of EB5 is to boost the economy, to create jobs. So if it's not doing those, then it's not an EB5 program. Then when regional centers were created, one can, directly apply to a regional center. And regional
Mhm.
center projects are approved by they are generally federal projects, and they have fund these big, huge multinational projects, infrastructures, through these funding. And if you invest in the regional center, the amount of capital is lower than what it would be in a standalone project. um, the jobs created have to be 10 full-time jobs. Now, if it's a standalone project, you have to have 10 full-time jobs created, which means 35 hours a week. Those employees must be working at your job site. As for the regional center projects, you can have direct and indirect jobs leading up to 10 full-time jobs. You don't have to have directly employed. The regional center doesn't have to be a direct employer. But in a
Okay.
standalone project, you have to be a direct employer of 10 employees. So, and if you don't meet that, you're not going to qualify. It'll be rejected. Um,
Okay. Okay.
then the amount of capital that you have to pay, so it varies. So before March 15th of 2022, the standalone investor was $1 million, and for a regional center, it was 500,000. Then after 2022 March 15th, it became $1,050,000 for a standalone, and it became $800,000 for a regional center. So the investment at this time, if you're investing in a regional center, is 800,000, and that's just your investment. On top of that, you have attorneys' fees, or your consultant fees, your expert fees, translation fees, the report for the labor department fees. um, that you need when you're doing a standalone project, though, because you have to show that you're meeting that requirement.
Right.
So those are on top of it, and then the regional center has their own fees that charge you, like a one-time fee, and that could vary from regional center to regional center. So these are the requirements for one to qualify as an EB5. And I know you've asked question about funding and all later, so I'll wait for that. um,
Sure. Sure. So thank you so much for explaining the key steps, in the process, especially to know that you actually qualify for an EB5. So, folks out there, thank you so much. And I'll quickly say hi to
I,
Ritika. Thank
I
you
just
so
want
much
to
for
add
joining us.
one
Sure.
second.
Sure.
I
Sure.
just want to add that when we talk about investment of capital, it could be either cash or real property or personal property, any mixed tangible assets whose fair market value in US dollars is amounts to the amount that you need to invest. So it could be any of those. Sorry, go ahead. I'm
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
No, it's good. Thank you so much for adding that point too, Seema. And that's what an introduction to EB5 is, friends. So if that's how you're going to qualify, there are three different ways you can qualify. Just now, Seema has just told us about it, and thank you. Also, like what about to obtaining permanent residency after you qualify for an EB5? There's the second part of the question.
So there's a process to it. Once you are have invested your money, the application. So there's a step by step application. So for a standalone petition, you file the I-526 and you show all the necessary documentation of your investment, your business plan. You have your expert reports. It's like a voluminous thing that you file with the immigration. That goes with your I-526 for a standalone project. It's a one I-526E if you go through a regional center. Those are easier because the regional center has already got their approved business plans. They've got everything approved. So you fill out your form, they attach all of that, and it goes. Um, that leads to then the application of the I-485 and then the form I-131. The application is for the residency, for the permanent residency, and for adjustment of status.
Right.
The good part about EB5 is you can concurrently file for your travel documents, the the form I-131, and for the I-765, which is authorization for employment. Initially, and this has changed after 2022. Prior to that, if you were on an EB5, you couldn't work. So if you didn't have a valid visa, you had to go back. Or even if you had a valid visa that expired, you had to go back till your EB5 was approved. They've changed that, which is great for investors because now you can concurrently apply for travel documents like advanced parole. You can go back and forth, you can travel, and you can get employment authorization while your EB5 visa is pending. So that's the good news for EB5. Then after your I-526 is approved, those that are in a foreign country ready to come here, they will do the DS-26 application for visa and alien registration to come into the US. Those that are here will do the I-485 for adjustment of status from an existing visa to the new visa. And then once you get that, you'll get your 2-year conditional visa, and
Mhm.
after 90 days prior to the expiration of that conditional visa, you have to apply your I-829 for the removal of conditions for your permanent green card. And that has to be done 90 days before that 2-year
Right.
period expires. And then once you're approved, the conditions are removed. You're a valid green card holder. And in, I think, 5 years or how many years, you can apply for your citizenship thereafter.
There you go, friends.
So
Yeah. Thank
that's
you
the
so much. Thank you so much, Seema, for explaining us in detail and for walking us through the whole process, from initial investment to obtaining permanent residency using the EB5 visa. Yes, so I was saying hi to Ritika. Thank you so much for your questions. I would say just stay with us. She's sent us questions in YouTube and also to Pranav. So thank you so much. Stay with us. We will come to your questions. But for now, Seema, I also have another question. This is regarding collectively, if can EB5 investments be made collectively through groups such as family members or siblings, or does each individual need to apply separately?
So an EB5 visa applies for an entire family unit, a husband, a wife, and children who are under the age of 21. They can apply under one visa, one capital investment. If you are a brother or sister of the investor, that's separate. You have your own family unit. If your kids are over 21, they cannot be part of that unit. They have to apply separately. But a husband,
Okay,
wife, children under the age of 21 can apply together for an EB5.
that's very interesting. All right, and there you go, friends. And otherwise, it's all individual. And if it's your sibling, they have a separate, of course, I mean, you're all above 21, then you have to file them all separately.
That's a separate
Great.
visa. That's a separate investment, a separate entire application.
Right. Thank you, Seema, for the detailed answer, though short but very clear. Also, now moving on to this next question I have. This is what is the typical range of fees that consultants charge for processing EB5 applications? And once the I-526 petition is approved, can the investor move to the US immediately?
So typically, consultants, what I've heard is they charge between $18,000 to $20,000. Attorney's fees could vary from about $20,000 to $35,000, depending on what the attorney is required to do. Then you have, fees for experts, between 5 to 7,000. Then there are translation fees because there are a lot of documents that come need to be translated into English. About one to, it could go to from one to about 7,500 or 1 to 3,000. So these are typically the fees that are there. This is in addition to any of the administrative fees that if it's a regional center project, they charge a fee on top of it. So
Mhm.
to cover their costs for setting up the entire business plan for all their setup. And I know that varies from about 15 to 20,000, but those you can negotiate with the regional center if you're investing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for taking that up, Seema. Now, moving on, I have another question, and this is regarding the key benefits. So, what are the key benefits of obtaining a green card through the EB5 program compared to other employment based visa categories?
So, like I said, the one very good thing about EB5 right now is the current concurrent visa application to travel back and forth. You can get a green card without employment restrictions, unlike an H1B. So, for example, if you are, say, here on a B1, B2 visa and you apply for an EB5, you can convert that visa. uh, You know, you can file for an EB5, file for an employment authorization. You don't need to have any employee restrictions on it. You can apply anywhere in the US and you can work anywhere. You don't need any employer to sponsor you. For an H1, when you come in, you already have to have a job and an employer sponsorship before you can enter. You don't need that with an EB5 job authorization. And then you don't need to have a job offer requirement. With an H1, you need a job offer before you can, get your H1 and then you come. And there's no minimum education or income requirement. I know EB5s, H1Bs have that income and education requirement to qualify. That's not there. And your entire family can be sponsored on an EB5, unlike an H1B. It's specific to that one candidate, for his education. And then in EB5s, you can also get a rate of return on your investment. So there are certain regional centers that will give you 0.5, 1%, 1.5% rate of return on the money. But this is given to you after you get your green card, everything is over. They tally it up and you get money back. Some of them give you as you go along. So each project is different. So these are the benefits of an EB5. But yeah, you need a high capital. If you have that kind of money, EB5 it's a no-brainer. You don't need to go through any other visa because they are pretty relaxed. And then you can travel. If you have applied for it and you have a valid visa that you're adjusting, you can travel back and forth. I know an H1B, I know of a lot of people that are very restricted and they're scared to go home, thinking they might not be able to come back. So those are the advantages of an EB5 over other visas.
Thank you so much. So, I'm so sure that you would prefer an EB5 over an H1B any day,
Yep.
as long as we have the money, of course, the
Yeah,
funds.
money is the criteria.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Seema. And definitely, folks out there, if you are considering the EB5 program, I think you should definitely go for it. I mean, as long as you qualify. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to keep commenting. And Dipti, Eric, thank you so much for your questions. We will get to them as well. Just stay with us. For now, I have another question, Seema, and this is if you could explain about the source of funds. Could you explain the importance of the source of funds in an EB5 application, and how can applicants ensure that their financial documentation is compliant with USCIS requirements?
That is the most important part of an EB5 is the source of funds. The USCIS is so strict. They want a definitive paper trail from the source of where the money started to where it ended. So, for example, a lot of people will say, "Oh, we have an ancestral home. We sold it and we got this money, and can we use it?" Yeah, that's great. But where did your ancestors get the money to put in there? So you have to go back to that level of paper trail, and they're very, very strict. They can reject your visa if that is not vetted properly. And that's the first thing I do when I get a client is show me your source of funds. Let's not waste time. So I divide
Mm-hmm.
my retainer into sections where the first part is vetting of the source, because that is the
Mm-hmm.
most important part. So you have to present your tax records, you have to present all your bank statements, you have to, if you have ancestral homes or inheritance properties, you have to start from scratch and show me right from the beginning to the end how you got that
Mm-hmm.
money into your bank.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of this is to avoid all the fraud and money laundering that is going on. Any kind of illegal activity related money will not be accepted at all. And this is also to protect the US economy, to build up the investor confidence that, someone who doesn't have the money is using illegal money, acquiring illegal money, should not be allowed to use it. And the
Mm-hmm.
path of funds from the origin or the original source of funds is required. You can't just say, oh, this is ancestral property. I sold it today and I got this money. That's not enough. You have to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And then when
Okay.
people borrow money from others and have a mortgage and a note, they have to show that person's source of funds from where whom they borrowed. So it's pretty intensive and it's not that easy. And I've had many clients who applied through me. I rejected them right in the first phase. I'm like, it won't be granted. Don't waste your money. Because, in India, you don't have the proper paper trail for the money that most of these people have.
I mean, so basically, nothing can be like, how to say, we have to get back to the root, how you got that money to invest in
Absolutely.
your business,
Most
basically.
most important part.
Most
Because
important.
9 out of
So,
10 people can come up with $800,000 with no problem. But where is that coming from?
right, right.
A lot have cash sitting, but that we can't take it. USCIS is not
Mm.
going to take it.
So no one can use their black money. It all has to be white.
I
There
didn't
you
want to
go,
say that
friend.
yet. You got it.
Yes. All right. So moving on, we have our next question. So source of funds is very important, friends, and you cannot do anything without sourcing each and every penny that you've got to invest in your business. Now, this next one is about current processing times. What are the current processing times for EB5 visa, including the I-526 and the I-126E? Sorry,
526.
I-1, yeah, I-526E petitions. Are there any factors that could expedite or delay these timelines?
I don't know what factors could delay it, but source of funds definitely would delay it if they're not properly, submitted. But
Mhm.
so each category, I'll just go over it. I've written it down here. I-526 can take anywhere from 29 to 61 months. I-485 from 6 to 8 months to get adjusted. After the 526 and 526E is approved. Then the DS-260 for people who are abroad and the adjustment has taken place for them to come is another 3 to 6 months. And the I-829, which is the removal of conditions on your green card and get a permanent one, is about 22 to about 48 months. So
Okay.
those are the timelines. And there are expedited ways of doing these visas as well. Uh, I'm not sure the timelines on those.
Timelines. It'll vary from, I think, case to case
Exactly.
and
Hmm.
depending on what you need to prove. So,
Exactly.
but roughly, I mean, within 2 years, I mean, everything can be sorted, I think.
I think so.
Mo- Moving on, friends. Sure, Seema. Sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I have this next question. And it's often said that the EB5 process can take up to a decade to complete. Could you clarify the typical timeline for an investor to obtain a green card and subsequently US citizenship?
I just went through that.
We
The
went through that
citizenship.
and
Yeah, I just
yeah, okay,
went through all the timelines. The
right.
first part is the 526E or a 526, then the
Mhm.
I-485, then the D-260. Once you're a judge, the good part about EB-5 is that if you are on any kind of valid visa in the United States, you can convert and apply and remain. pending your visa application. You can work here, you can travel. So that is a good part. But if you're not on a valid visa, you cannot enter, obviously. And if you're here on a your visa is expired, you'll have to
Mhm.
go back to come back in. You
Yes.
will not be able to adjust it here. But if you're
Right.
on a valid visa, then you can remain here. So then the timelines don't matter because you're already living in the country. You can travel as you wish. You're working. So it doesn't impact your daily life. But prior to 2022, this was not the case. People who applied, they were like sitting in foreign countries waiting for the visa to come, and it was taking a long time. So this is a great change that was made in 22 by Biden.
It's much better now, right? Thank you so much, Seema, for explaining it further for us. Now, moving on to our next question. For 2024, what updates should potential investors be aware of when considering the EB5 visa process? And are there any changes in the requirements or timeline? Of course, timelines we just discussed, right?
Timelines is what I just went through. But
Right.
the EB5 program has right now been extended to 2027. They
Mhm.
now require the regional centers to give an annual fee, and I think it is about 20,000 a year that the regional centers have to give. And also, these regional centers are audited every 5 years,
Mhm.
and the set aside programs have been the set aside quotas for these visas have been created, and then the expedited visa process has also been set in place. So these are
All
the
right.
updates for 2024.
Thank you so much for give walking us through the updates for 2024. Thank you so much, Seema. And quickly, a big hello to Yugandhar and also Catherine. Thank you for your questions. We will definitely come to them, but please stick with us for now. Seema, I have another question, and this is regarding the reserved visa category. So, how does the EB5 reserved visa category allow investors to move to the US more quickly? And what are the advantages of this reserve status compared to the regular EB5 visas?
So they've created these set asides for, each year these set asides are created. So in rural areas, you have 20% that are set aside for expedited. Then in high unemployment, 10%. Infrastructure projects is 2%. Then there are certain countries that have priority, and they have different visa categories and quotas because very few people are coming from there. When there's a high influx from a country, they're sort of taking a back step on that. And any of these set aside visas that go unused in one
Mhm.
year, they hold the same it for the same category for one more year. And then after that second year, if they are released to any unreserved EB5 immigrant numbers in the third fiscal year. So that's
Mhm.
how it goes. So anybody investing in a rural project, 20% is given priority. And then in a high unemployment, 10%. In an infrastructure project, if you're 2% of that is set aside for their priority.
Okay. Okay. So there you go, friends, for the reserve status or the set aside status. Thank you so much, Seema, for walking us through it all. Now, I have another question, and this is regarding the 2024 quota. So, with the 2024 quota in place of employment based visas, what impact does this have on the availability of EB5 visas, and how should investors plan their timelines, accordingly?
It's a tough question dealing with USCIS, but I've told you the timelines. The best part is if they have a valid visa and they want to convert it and get a green card faster through an EB5, they should look at these timelines, make sure that they have the money, they can file it, and they can continue to live in the United States. So I would plan if I was an EB5 investor, I would make sure that I'm in the country on a valid visa, I can convert it, I can travel, and then you just, apply because the timelines are what they are.
Yes.
I'm not even sure how you would plan it with, dealing with immigration. So that's a tough question to to answer. But these quotas are in place. You can pick up infrastructure projects through regional centers and put an investment in that. I always encourage my clients to put the money in regional center projects for several reasons. Number one, they've already done it. They have all their documentation in place, and you have the support of theirs to apply. They have the 2% set aside for their for those projects, and then you don't have to worry. You can stay here. You can work, and they walk you through. So I feel
Mhm.
regional center projects are more. I encourage my clients to file those or invest in those.
Okay. Thank you so much, Seema. And I think this brings us to, the end of the first half of this webinar we're having, and it's time for a short break. So, folks out there, I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and maybe you are wanting to have a one-on-one consultation also with attorney Seema. So, why not contact her? Her details are on the screen. You can call her on this number, 609 454 3168. That is her number. You can also email Seema at ssinglawcom. You can check out the spelling on the screen, and also visit www.ssinglawcom to get to know more about uh, attorney Seema Singh. Thank you, folks. Don't go anywhere because we are going to take up each of your questions, but right after this short break on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Today, we have none other than Director of Corporate and Litigation at Singh Law LLC, Attorney Seema Singh, who is helping us navigate, under EB5 visa category. She is guiding us through the 2024 updates, the timelines, and everything possible. So, thank you so much, Seema, and it's great to have you here. So far, so good. And I'm excited because in the second half of the webinar, we are going to take up all the questions our audience have actually. So I hope you are as well, Seema.
Sure.
All right. So let's take up this first one. This is Yugandhar. Hi. Hi to you too. Recently, my I-797B got approved, but my name got missed, actual name. Teki Venkat Yugandhar Babu, but last name Babu got missed. Will that be an issue? How to correct this? And could you help me on this?
I don't know if it'll be an issue or not. It all depends on what your supporting documentation shows. And I know USCIS, you make one slight mistake, it could come back to delay things and bite you. You can go on the USCIS website and pull up your you. I'm sure they've given you some number when your visa is filed or your petition is filed. They give you a visa number or a petition number. If you put that in, you can pull up your stuff. You can send them an email, and figure it out with them. And if you've hired a lawyer to do your 797B, then just have your lawyer do it, or you can just go on your website yourself. That's the best way I've found to communicate with them.
Absolutely. So,
But whether
um,
that will be an issue or not, I can't tell. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is. It depends on them having your other supporting documents and what they say. It's always good to be
right.
very, specific and correct and accurate when you file these petitions.
Absolutely. And in the My USCIS account, they give the number for your registration. So I think that's how you can get the
Yeah,
number and put in and know your status. And I think best to consult an attorney because they are going to guide you to the through the right path. So all the best, Yugandhar. Moving on, let's take up Catherine's questions. So, Catherine says, great points you made. Could you elaborate on how to handle this? I recently purchased a house worth of $1 million and I financed it for a 30 years loan agreement. So the title is isn't is not on my name yet. Can I show that as a collateral to get an EB5 investment loan?
It depends on who is giving you the loan. I mean, if the bank is going to accept that as a collateral, it's up to whoever is loaning you the money. Um, I don't know if it doesn't have your name, then the person whose name it's on has to sign on that guarantee agreement. So
Okay.
it's up to the bank or whoever who's loaning you.
Okay. So thank you so much, Catherine, for your question. But I think it's only going to depend on who is going to give you the loan. So all the best. Let's take up Ritika's question. This is on YouTube. Ritika is asking, I have family from Argentina and they're trying to buy a five properties in Las Vegas, creating an LLC. They can they can reach 10 employees. Can those employees be part of the family? As well, how many family members can get a green card?
So when you do the 10 full-time job requirements, it cannot be the investor applicant or any family member. That's very, very important to know. And secondly, I just covered that your husband, wife, and children over the age of 21 can go on one application and one investment. If you have siblings and extended family, each one has to have their own separate visa applications. You cannot do it under all of it. And the part about forming an LLC, that's not enough to have a standalone application. You have to have proper business plans. You have to show the USCIS how you're going to meet their requirements for 10 full-time jobs. What will they be doing? What are their salaries? 35 hours a week they have to work. So it's more intensive. That's why I guide my clients, take your money, put it in a invest in the regional center, and then if you want to buy properties separately, you can do that or get a job. Once you get your money back, you could buy the properties. But it's a very intensive process if you go ahead and do it on your own. It's not just buy these five properties, do an LLC, and apply for an EB5. It doesn't work that way. You have a lot of other supporting documentation and expert reports that you have to submit with it.
And of course, the source of funds too.
Well, I'm assuming they have that since you said we are investing.
So there you go, Ritika. I hope we've got all your questions answered. If you have any further questions, you can keep commenting. We are here for a little more time. All right. So moving on, we have Pranav. Pranav is asking, my sister invested to the EB5 direct program couple years ago. Her file just saw, her file just sat there because they didn't do anything. So is it possible for my sister to withdraw money from that company, and will they accept to return the money to my sister?
Who will return the money to your sister? I'm unclear. If it's a direct project, then it's her own project. So I'm confused. I don't understand uh, where the direct investment is. Is it a company she created? Um, she can withdraw her application and take the money, but the question says withdraw money from, and will they accept to return the money? Who will accept to return the money? I'm not clear on the
I think
question.
we need more clarity, Pranav. If you could tell us more about your case or your status, and yes, that'll be great. But thank you for your question. And moving on, we have Dipti also asking another question on YouTube. She's asking, liberalized remittance scheme allows Indian residents to send up to $250,000 per financial year to the USA for various purposes, such as education, medical treatment, and investments. So, how can we transfer $800,000 in one go? Moreover, what are the additional fees or charges we should keep in mind before applying?
So I went through the additional fees and charges. Is the administrative fee that if you are applying in a regional center, they charge that additional fees. You have expert fees, who experts who are going to make your business plans. You have translation fees if that's required. Your documents need to be translated. There are attorney's fees, the attorney who's going to make your application and from start to finish. I don't know if you have a consultant or a broker in between. Their fees are there as well. So these are the additional fees that you have to keep, and then the filing fees. When you file with the immigration, you have filing fees and costs related to that. So on top of the 800,000 is all of this other additional expenses and monies that you have to keep in mind. The 800,000 you will get back once your visa is approved. That gets returned. So it's actually in the end, it's all these other expenses is what your visa is going to cost you. And some of the regional centers also give you a rate of return on your investment. As far as transferring money from India, I don't think you need to do it in one go. I think regional centers are accepting funds in pieces. And I had heard that you can repatriate $1 million a year. Um, so look into that.
Okay. Okay. What about the taxes? Are they going to be involved in this?
Taxes for what?
Taxes for transfer of this amount of money, I mean, which is going to
That I
soon
don't. I
goes.
don't think so. There are fees and stuff, but I don't know about taxes. I know you pay taxes if you've sold inheritance property. You have to make sure that that tax clearance is done before those funds are moved. I did it personally for us, so we had to
Okay.
get an accountant there once we sold our ancestral property, and they did entire tax return on the original basis of the property versus what it was for. The taxes were paid, they had the tax clearance certificate, and then I could just, from bank to bank, just move my money. I didn't need any other permission.
Okay. Okay. Dipti, you might want to look out on the $1 million transactions that can be made, transfers that can be made. And thank you so much for your question. Thank you for participating. And thank you, Seema, for the detailed explanation. Now we have Eric, also on YouTube, asking, awesome discussion. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Seema, for that. I'd like to know if I can open my own LLC on H1B and employ myself, then I may never have to leave US even if I lose my job.
That's illegal, by the way. You can't do that. You can open your own company and employ yourself as an H1B. So that you'll never stay in the US by doing that.
Okay. So, Eric, that seems impossible, but thank you so much for your ideas and for sharing them with us. Also, we have our next question now. This is from Varun. What if my wife works for her UK employer, but we live in USA? I would look to get into business with 50K GBP when over in the States.
What's
And
GBP?
wife would look for work in America while working remotely for the UK company. Would this be an option?
Didn't understand your question.
Me neither, not much.
I really
Um,
didn't understand what he said.
50K GBP gross, I don't know. Okay, Varun, maybe we would need more clarity on your question. If you could tell us what you really want to know. Would this be an option if, okay.
I
So
didn't understand his
GBP
question.
is Great Britain pounds, 50K Great Britain pounds when over in the States.
So if he starts a business, I mean, how is he coming here? What visa? Is he applying for an EB-5? I'm confused.
Sure, we would want to know on what visa are you here in the US and still working for the UK company. Varun, if you could clarify that, maybe we could give you a better answer. But thank you for your question. And for now, let's quickly move on to Shruti's question. She has actually a series of questions, so let's take them one by one. Shruti's, okay, we will take up Shruti's question, but after Shri's. So let's take up this one from Shri on YouTube. Is there an expected time frame by when the initial investment is returned? And if and that if is done through a regional center. Is there any return on investment during the initial period or later?
So I've already answered it. I'm going to repeat. Um, the initial investment is returned after you get your green card. Okay, so whenever that is. So I can't give you a number of years because it all depends on when you get it. And that's through a regional center or directly. All the rules are the same. The return on investment is by each regional center has their own rate of return on the investment, and it's going to be part of the agreement you sign with them. You'll know what percentage you're getting. Some regional centers give it as you go along, some give it, and they don't give you actual cash as you go along. They give you like a certificate or some kind of a note or something as you go along. They don't actually give you the money. But then in the end, all that is accumulated and they pay you out if there is any rate of return that they're giving you.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Seema, for taking that up. And Shri, thank you so much. I would just suggest you could watch this whole webinar once again. It will be published once this live stream has ended, also. So maybe you'll get more clarity on this. Thank you, Shri, for your question. Now I have Shruti's question. So let's take it part by part. Let's take up this first part. I am leaning towards EB5 visa. Have some questions in my mind. This first one is, I know the investment is at risk, but if we choose a better project, is the investment amount returned after a couple of years?
I just covered it. The investment is supposed to be returned on any project. Yes, it's investment at risk, but good projects bring you back your money. And the criteria for investment is that you get it back at the end when you get your green card. It's for all projects, not only just for regional center. But obviously, a standalone project is one project you've created on your own. So that's really in your hands. But a regional center is investment at risk. And anything can happen. But 9 out of 10 times, people do get their money back. They're supposed to get their money back.
All right. There you go, Shruti. And she has some more questions. So the second one is, I will have 200K of my own money and 200K from home equity loan, and rest will be from loan from the project or business. Is that acceptable by USCIS?
Again, as long as you can show the entire paper trail. When you show the 200K equity, your home equity loan, you need to show where you got the money to purchase that home. So you have to show the paper trail of funds, and then loan from the project business. Which project business? I'm not clear on what you mean. If you have a project or business, again, you have to produce all the documentation, a paper trail of all the funds, and yes, you can pull money from there.
That's very, very important, So, Shruti, I think you have to really put in all in this step, sourcing all the funds that you have. Moving on to the third question Shruti has, is the full money needed at the initial stage? How long does the conditional green card application take for Indian born applicants?
I went through the timelines again, about 29 to 61 months, depending on, and I know India is a little back because there are lot of these applications from there. The full
Mhm.
money is again depending on which project you invest in. There are regional centers that are taking it in bits, uh, in phases. So that you'll have to check. Once you pick your project, there are many, many, many regional centers all across the country. So I would urge you to first go through, research it, feel comfortable with where you're investing.
Mhm.
I work with couple regional centers, so if you call me offline, we can discuss it. But go through whichever project you want to invest. Each one has their own criterias.
Definitely. And Shruti, the details of attorney Seema, her contact details are scrolling on the screen. You can contact her. And this gives me lead to the next question. This is the last question by Shruti. If I am applying from outside US, is there any interview or for conditional green card, or is it all paper-based application without any interview?
I'm not sure whether they do an interview or not, but you have the DS 26. Once your application is approved over here for an EB5 investor visa, I'm not sure whether they give you any hard time. It's you just have to go. It takes about I think about 3 months or something from the time your application is approved here. About three
Mhm.
to 6 months, I believe it takes for you to get
All
your
right.
visa.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking up all the questions for Shruti. And Shruti, thank you so much for, all of your questions, for participating and for all your 4 questions. I hope you got the answers. I was hoping that Varun would come back, for more clarification on what he really wanted to know. But I think we have covered each and every question from the audience and just looking through them once more if we've missed any. But I think we have covered. Thank you so much, Seema, for doing this. And I think this brings us to almost the end of our webinar today. So I really want to extend my heartfelt thank you to our guests. But before we bid farewell for today, I would really like Seema to, wrap up our show, maybe give us an end note to this topic we discussed today, ready to invest in your future, EB5 visa guide and 2024 updates. What do you want to say to wrap it all up?
I think under the employment based categories, it's the best way, the best pathway to citizenship, to getting a green card and becoming a citizen. Yes, the money is a big factor, but different projects have made it a little more easier. So if you are looking for that, I would suggest interviewing and speaking to different projects and to see a way where you can, bring in the money, maybe not all at one go or in steps. I do know that they become a little flexible in with that kind of with the capital requirement as well. So in my mind, it is the best way to get a visa. I know there are long lines for H1Bs. It's pretty tough even with the unless you're marrying a citizen. Even family based immigration has become very tough. EB5 is so far, in my mind, the best way if funds are available. And the good part is, again, as I mentioned before, the concurrent visa application for employment authorization and, for your parole, uh, advanced parole to travel back and forth. That makes it easier for an EB5 applicant to remain in the US, to work, to travel while their visa is pending. So the timelines, the long timelines don't really impact your daily life, and you can start setting up your future in the US while you are waiting for your visa to come through. So, you know, that's what I would leave everybody with. If you have the funds, explore this. I think this is the best avenue.
Absolutely. So if you have the funds, EB5 could be your thing, friends, but it's always best to find out. So to find that out, you should consult an expert, and that could be none other than an attorney who could guide you to through the right path. So thank you so much, Seema. But I think we should take up this last question since we have a little more time, and I don't want to leave Kathleen, you know, without an answer. So she's asking, "Hi ma'am, I am in US on H1B currently with just about 30K in savings. My income is 140K per annum. Do you think I can try EB5?"
I don't think so. If you can get a loan from someone and have who has proper funds through legal activity, yes. But just with what you have, I don't think so. Um, I mean,
Okay. But
it,
Kathleen,
it,
I
it is
mean,
valid
Kathleen,
until it is valid until 2027. So if you can come up with more savings and with family to help you, you can get loans from them. You can get gifts from family members to file this.
yes.
Again, the source of funds, the paper trail for anything you get is very important. So even somebody is gifting you the money, they have to show the paper trail of where they got the money to gift you, and they
To
have to
gift
show all
you.
the backing
Okay.
and support of tax
So even
returns
a
and bank
gift,
statements.
even a
Absolutely,
gift.
absolutely. You can get black money as a gift. They're not going to accept it till you can show where it came from.
Okay,
So yeah.
that's Kathleen. So there you go. But I mean, you have options, and if you still got time, maybe you could do some fundraisers and collect all the money you need to,
Anything is possible.
qualify. Yes, absolutely. But thank you so much, Seema. This was very interesting, intriguing, and we got to learn so much from you in this webinar. So thank you so much for doing this. It was such an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us once again.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and to all the listeners and the viewers, thank you for participating. And you can always reach me offline if you need to. And always, always a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much for hosting it.
Thank you so much, Seema. So, once again, friends, you can always contact Attorney Seema. Her details are on the screen. You can call her on this number, 609 454 3169, or you can
Six eight
email Seema.
3168.
Sorry, 3168. Once again, I repeat, 609 454 3168. That's the number. You can email her, Seema, SEEMA, at the rate SSINGHLAW.com. So Seema at ssinglawcom, and go visit www.ssinglawcom. Thank you, Seema. You have a good time ahead, and I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you so much. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye bye. Folks out there, thank you so much for participating and thank you for all your questions. And stay with us. If you resonated with this webinar, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also like, share, and comment. It will be very nice to have you interact with us and to get to know, you more. So thank you so much. And this is Nipasa Pradhan signing off from Immigration and Jobs Talk Show.